Yeah, Anirudh, you can start.
Okay. Hello, everyone. This is Anirudh Agarwal again, and I am here with another another session on Introduction to JavaScript. Today's so just to give you a brief introduction of what we are doing, Newton School is providing. Newton School has launched this program called Launchpad, in which people who have very little experience or know very little knowledge about programming and who want to explore to this world of programming can come in and start checking out all the courses. They have a lot of courses going on, which includes JavaScript, Python, Java, and also other courses wherein you can come in and learn for free, and you can get yourself started on programming. Uh, and just to give you an intro of how you would be able to do that, I'll walk us through again. Uh, so basically, what you can do is that you can visit the website, which is newtonschool.co, and you can just proceed with this with your sign up, and then when you will come to the home page, you will see all of these courses, and the course that is there that we are doing today, session on today is called Launchpad, in which you can see that there are various programming uh, courses. You have database management, you have Python, you have Java, and if once you and these courses, right? Introduction to Java and Introduction to JavaScript by Anvit Agarwal. So these two will be also available here for those who haven't already started with this course. So the course that we are conducting today is Introduction to JavaScript by Anirudh Agarwal, in which we would have around eight lectures, and uh, we are currently on the fourth lecture. Right, today is our fourth lecture, and in the previous lectures we started with what JavaScript is, how is it different from Java, and to cover that you can go through the other courses, and then in the next course we covered some basic building blocks of what how would I write my hello world program and all of that. Yesterday was a very interesting day wherein we talked about few conditions, how to put we talked about a lot of conditional operators, and then we moved on to loops. If you want to understand how is a program, if you want to execute some piece of code again and again and again. So we understood how loops can help us, and today we are going to learn about arrays and objects, and how is data, basically how would you keep your data inside your JavaScript program, how would you massage it, how would you parse it, how would you going about modifying it, how can you so basically you can think about, like, most of us have been to schools, right? And in just to take an example, in a school we have a library, right? So there are thousands of books in a library, and so an edition, so a very famous edition which in my college, it used to be Thomas Corman's Introduction to Algorithms, right? So there were like there would have been at least 100 copies of that book, right? So just to keep that 100 copies of that book, whenever somebody issued the book, then decrementing the value of 100, and just always keeping in memory that at that point of time the library currently has how many books available, how many of that, or even if for a particular version, like there are at some point of time there could have been just two books, or towards the when they're closer to exams everybody wanted to issue a book, so there were hardly any books available, right? So we could go to the library computer, and we could check how many books are available, right? So then it also used to save that if a book, how many people who have been, what is the student ID of the person who has taken that book, if so all of this information, and then there is that when was this book issued, what is the end date, and what is the fine that is there, all of this system, right? All of this data has to be held together, right? So we will be talking about that. We'll be taking this example, that how are objects beneficial to us and how are arrays beneficial to us. So let's just get started. We'll dive into our presentation, and we'll see what we are going to cover today, right? So basically, the most and just a disclaimer again, all of the concepts that we are going to be covering today are so the concepts like arrays, objects, it's a very generic programming construct, and it's not something which only JavaScript has. That's why. So if you jump to any language, right, you would find this concept of arrays, right? So that is why it is it's very good for us to understand what is happening, and then it's also very important for us to understand that what is that particular time, or when is it that we should use this, we should use arrays, like when it's very important for us to always to understand that if we are trying to learn something, right? I am always a person who's always a believer of why before understanding what or how, right? So if you understand that why are we doing something, then you would be able to understand what and how is something which anybody can do, right? So very few people in this world understand what is the why was this introduced, why are arrays there, why is there an object, why. But we have learned, right, that you have a variable and you can keep it in a variable, right? You can hold values referring back to the example of library, right? We could just have kept that variable, right? That the variable of book 1 would equal to 100, right? So why is it that we need an object, all of that thing, right? All of those things. So that is why we will be trying to cover, and then we'll come back, right? So basically an array. So just imagine an array to be a collection of blocks which are kept one after the other. So the bookish definition of an array would be an array is a contiguous memory allocation, and I'm not making a mistake when I'm saying that word. Contiguous. It's an English word, and what it means is that uh, each each of the object, each of the item in an array is placed right next to the other, right next to each other, right? So that is what a contiguous, right? It's not continuous. The word for it is contiguous, right? So what is so if an array, if let's consider this particular array, and we what did we just say? We said that an array is something which is like a contiguous collection of items which are put next to each other, right? So very simply put, let's consider this is an item. The next item is this is another item, this is another item, this is another item. So all of these are always put one next to the other. Okay. So since I usually like talking about the internals, how things are represented, although you might not even need it, right? So you might not even need to know all of this, but I generally find it very interesting, and so that's why I would want to tell that how is this actually kept in your memory, right? So whenever we declare an array, we'll see the syntax, but let's just go with the concepts first, and then we'll see, right? So when we are actually when we have an array, right? When we declare an array, what happens is that some memory is allocated, right? So let's say let's just go to the Newton School ID, which is a very good way of uh, solving, checking for running JavaScript code. So let's say I define array, but I give it a value of 8. Let's say just for an example, right? So what would have happened when I declared variable a equal to 8, right? What would have happened? So it would have allocated, it would have created a memory space. It would have allocated some memory, and it would have created a variable a, and it would have given it some memory, and in that memory box it would have given the value of 8. That's it. That's what would have happened, right? So now the syntax of writing an array is just simply square brackets. So if I say variable array arr equal to this, so we have declared an array. That's it. That is it. So now since JavaScript is not a type specific language, what would happen is this particular variable arr is actually given a value of an array. This particular array. Now this array is actually so now you have to imagine it, that what would have happened, right? So basically, when as soon as the compiler comes here, what would have done it would have allotted some memory. Like it would have taken, like for 8 it would have taken some memory, right? For integer it's 4 bytes, right? So that's something which is a little advanced, but it's okay. right? So but if you consider an array, right, so what would have done is that it would, for this it would have blocked 4 bytes of memory for putting in 8 or any integer for that matter. It would have allocated 4 bytes of memory. But now when it sees an array, right, so basically what JavaScript does is that it blocks some memory for you. So it could be like, it could be 10 items. I do not exactly remember. I think it's around 10 or 15. The initial number is 10 or 15, right? But the best part about JavaScript, the beauty of JavaScript is that it's a dynamic array. So if you go to any programming languages, right, like if you go to Java, or if you go to C, or you go to C++, right? So what it's a static array. Whenever you are defining, right, in C, C++, Java, anywhere you are defining an array, you have to give it a length that of how many items will it can hold. And if you try to put so if I say that I want to put 10 elements inside it, so basically what it would mean is that it can accommodate 10 elements. So basically what your compiler, the engine, at runtime, what would happen is that it would allocate 10 spaces of memory, which are equal, which are one next to the other, right? It would allocate 10. But the best part about JavaScript is that you do not have to define this, right? So once I do that, it will automatically, it will have an initial number, and it will keep it that way. Now if I try to put in a 11th element, right, it will just work flawlessly. You even me as a user of JavaScript would never get to know that whether my array was finished, what did it complete, did not complete, all of that. I will never get to, because JavaScript is handling all of that for me. I do not have to take care of it, right? So just to give you an insight of how JavaScript does this. So basically JavaScript is not magic, right? It's a programming languages. It is also developed by developers like you and, right? They are little more advanced. They've been working on this. That's why that's the way they have taken, right? That's the so the methodology of how an array works is that, let's say it has an initial length of 10, right? And as soon as I put in so basically it would always keep till 10. It would always till I insert 10 elements, the array would remain the same, right? But as soon as I put in the 11th element, right, what JavaScript does is that it will copy. So basically it has a multiplier number, right? So what it does is that in Java, I remember it is 1.5. So basically what happens is that it will check what was the previous length of the array. So like in our case it was 10, and it will multiply it with a multiplier. So since in the case of Java it is like 1.5, JavaScript is 1.5. So the new length of the array would be 15, and it will copy the first 10 elements as it is to the new array, and then we will have 5 empty spaces, and put when you try to insert the 11th element, right, it will directly go into the 11th spot inside your array. So that is how JavaScript arrays work, right? So right. So now let's try to see let's try to put in some elements in an array, right? And we'll also try to cover what we learned yesterday. We learned for loop and while loop, right? So we'll try to see how things are working, and how can I iterate over an array, and the true power of a for loop would be actually shown when we work with arrays, right? So let's do this. So let me create an array, and let me put some values. Let's put just some integers, right? So randomly I'll put say 5, 8, 2, 3, 9, 6, right? So basically right now my array is this, and we'll see. So what we'll do is we'll do console.log and of array, right? And we'll try to run it. We'll see what happens. Okay. So basically it just returned the array of all of these things that I have done, right? So now we'll talk about what are the various ways. So just to give a use case, right? So just to talk about that why that we were talking about in the start of the session, was that when you have an array, right? So let's say just this referring back to our example of library management system. Uh, Basically, if there's a book, right, and let's say that book is there is a book, and we will see this, we'll cover, try to cover this. But if a book is there, and we would actually want to maintain that list, right? So if I am a library manager, manager who's actually managing all the books and the librarian, right? So I would want to know, right, that how many people or who has issued those books, right? So it will not be just one person, right? It can be multiple persons, right? So now imagine that there are 100 books, or let's say there's a book name A, and let's say what happens is that there were 10 copies of this book, right? And so basically, what in my program, what would I have done is that I would have taken book. Uh, so I can say issuer one, and I can give his name as ABC, right? And then I can have issuer two, and I can give his name as BCD, and so on and so forth, right? I could have like dot 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 dot, and then I can say till up till issuer 10, right? And I can give it some value. Cool. So basically, this is how I would have done, right? If I did not know what arrays are, and this is a perfectly fine way of doing things, right? But now, uh, so basically, just if you think about how software is developed, right? So if I am a developer of the software, I would have created this library management system, and then I would have given it to my college that you can use it as is, right? So you can use this particular library management system, and you can use it. Now, let's say someday this book becomes very famous, or the number of students in college increase, and for some reason they changed it, and then they bought another 5 more copies of the same book, right? So now what the librarian would have to do is that he will have to come back to me, right? And he will have to say that, Anirudh, I have we have bought 5 more books, so we want to add issuers to that. So then what would I have to do? I'll have to add 5 more issuers here. Issuer 11 equal to something, and then issuer 11 equal issuer 12 equal to something. But this does not seem like a scalable solution, right? This is like a very trivial solution of we can do this. This is not wrong, but this is very trivial, right? So it's a cumbersome process that every time you'll have to define a new variable and all of that. Instead of that, how would I instead of that, how would you like it if I propose the solution wherein I have a variable of issuers, and I'll say I'll maintain a list of all the issuers that are there. That's it, right? So I can say ABC, then BCD, then CDE, and so on, right? So all of the these things. And now this thing is not limited, right? So if you add 10 books, then you can have this issuer's length can be exceeded as much, right? So if you get 1,000 copies of a book, right? So you can just keep on adding to this list. You don't have to always come up to me and say that, Anirudh, we have added like 4 more copies or 5 more copies, and then you have to help us out here, and all of that, right? So we do not have to do that. So that's the advantage, or if you're thinking about that, that's the way of uh, how things are, and just that's the best use case to define of array. So array is contiguous memory allocation. That's it, right? So now to think about it, uh, just to think about it. So we have taken an array. Now, how do I get to know that? So let's say I want to let's replace these by names, right? So let me just replace these by names. So I'll say A, I'll say B, I'll say C. My bad. And I'll say D. Let's say there's 4 issuers. I'm very lazy to type, right? So let's say I want to know the name of the person who has taken the book, the third person who has taken the book. So what will I do? So there is a get operator. So basically, how to get a value from an array. So basically, I can do console.log, and I'll do ARR. Now this guy printed my entire array. Now to get the third value, right? What would I have to do? I can just do this. Now I know why I've written two. It's not wrong. It's not a typo. I'll come back to it. But let's just run the code and we'll see. We should ideally get C, right? We'll see what happens. We get the output C, right? So the good, or so the part about why why did that happen is that arrays start with 0th index. So the first item is actually 0, and then first, and then second, and then third, then fourth, then fifth, then sixth, right? So basically your fifth element is actually of index 4, your sixth element is actually of index 5, right? So that is how it is. That's how it is put, right? So that's how would you get an array, right? So you can also, we would also have to require sometime, let's say a person came in, and C gave his book to, let's say, another character called X, right? He gave it to some person called X, and he just comes up and says that, okay, I have given. So then I would have to modify it, right? I would have to modify my array, and I would have to say that, okay, the person who was at 2 position has given it to X guy, right? And then when I console.log of, I try to print the person, the third person who has taken my book would be, would actually come out to be X, right? So that is what, so basically these are the getters and setters of array, right? So these are the getters and setters of array. Now let's say I try to access, right? So let's say I try to access an element in an array which does not exist. So if you look at it, there is, okay. Before that, let's say what if we want to find the current length of the array, right? So what we can do is that we can do arr dot length. So this will return me a value of 4, because there were 4 elements in an array, right? So and this concept that I told you, right, that the index starts from 0 would actually is a concept which is consistent across all programming languages across the world. Everywhere in this world, the in the world of programming, the array starts with an index of 0, right? So that is how it is. And then when we print it, the length of this is 4. Now what if I try to print something which does not exist, right? So let's say I try to print array and a position of 100. So there aren't 100 elements, right? So what do you think should happen? It should definitely give me an error, and that is exactly what it will do. And so if you go to any other programming language out there in the world, right, you would get what you would get an error. And then if you talk about Java is like one of the majorly used languages in the outside world, right? So there's a very famous exception called array index out of bound exception, and the name suggests that, right? The array index out of bounds. So the bounds of that particular array were 0 to till 3, because the length was 4, and it works on 0 index system. So so the length, so the bounds will be till 0 to 3. So array index out of bound exception. But in the world of JavaScript, right, if you try to access any element which is actually at the it's a number which is not there, right? So it will just give you an undefined value. It does not give you a value and it does not give you an exception. So that's a very good part about JavaScript, that at runtime the maximum that you would be seeing is an undefined value, and your program will just not stop your execution. It will just go on even if you try to put in some value, right? So that's how JavaScript works, right? So that's one thing. And now so basically so since we read about for loops, right, and just to revise that concept, and also to understand, if I want to print all the elements of an array one by one, what I can do is that I'll just put in a simple for loop, right? So basically this is my 0th index, this is my first index, this is my second index, and this is my third index, right? So what we can do is that we can just print it one by one in a new line, or however we want, and we can just do a for loop, right, till the time the so I'll show you how we can go about in doing it. If somebody of you are interested, since you already know how to access elements in an array, and you also know how to operate a for loop, I would suggest that you pause this video right now, and you start and you try to do it yourself first, and then come up to and see the solution, right? So let me do that. So variable a, so let me just give a variable temp, and even if this is not even required, I just and we'll give it some value of any value. Let's say I initialize it to 0, right? And then when I say, I can put in a for loop, and I'll say temp equal to 0, and I'll say temp is less than, or so the basically one. Okay, let's just go ahead with this, and then we'll come up to one convention that we usually follow in the world of programming, right? So this is what we learned yesterday, right? How to use a for loop. So what we are doing is that I have initialized the variable of temp to 0, and then I have what I'm doing is that I will want to run this loop. So this is the condition in the for loop, and I would want to run this condition till the time the length of the so till the time temp is actually less than the array length of the array, and this has to be less than, or if you want to put it, you can put it less temp is less than or equal to array dot length minus of -1. Why so? Because my length would be, so we saw that the length of the array would be 4, but the last element D is actually at position 3, right? Which is length -1. So that is what. So temp is less than equal to array of length -1, right? And then we can do console.log, and what we'll do is that we'll put in and to access an array, what we do array, and we give it an index, right? So we'll give it temp, and that's it. And we can do so this will just print all of these, right? That's it, right? So A, B, and it gave X, right? Because we have given it a value of, we have given the array element 2 to be like the C is then replaced by X, right? So if I comment this out, my bad. If I comment this guy out, then it should give A, B, C, and D. That's exactly what it did, right? So that is that is how we can go ahead and uh, basically you can perform, like there are a lot of questions that you can solve. Programming with arrays is super fun, right? So basically one very trivial, not trivial, but very interesting topic would be to how would you go about it sorting an array, right? So if you have an array and you have, I define it array and ARR numbers, let's say I give it a name, and then I give it some values 5, 4, 6, 8, 1, 7, right? And if I want to sort this array out, and I want to, what I want to do is that I want to, what does sorting mean? Sorting can mean an arranging your numbers either in a ascending order or descending order, right? So there are a lot of ways. What I would suggest is that since in the interest of time, we would not be covering all of those algorithms in this course, uh, but I would really suggest you to go ahead and see, read about various implementations of sorting. One of the most simplest ones to code would be a bubble sort, right? So that's where you should start with, and then uh, there have been improvements, and there are a lot of other algorithms which actually try to solve this problem of sorting for us, and in the minimum time possible, right? So one of the most performant algorithms out there in the world is quicksort, right? That's it. And also JavaScript also provides you an inbuilt function of actually sorting your array. So let's say I will do console.log of ARR num sort, right? So what it will do is that it just, and you just do a sort, right? So it will give you, and it sorted my array 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, right? So it is not always necessary for you to understand, but once you understand, right, how sorting works internally, how is JavaScript solving it? So the algorithm that JavaScript uses to sort is actually quick sort, and basically a quick sort works on the principle of pivot. Uh, I am not sure. A couple of years back, it used to be dual pivot quicksort. I am not sure if that is what it uses today also, right? They're always making changes just to try to make JavaScript more faster and make it perform more, make it more performant, right? So that is why uh, they are using if you have interest in algorithms, then you might know that there are some things called as big O notations and all of that. Quick sort is basically one of the which has a big O notation of n log n, right? So it's better than bubble sort, but it's a little more complex to understand, obviously. but you can go ahead and read about it. If you do a quick Google search about what quicksort is or bubble sort is, you can find multiple articles and you can just go and read about it, right? So I would really encourage you to do all of that, right? And it will help you out. It will just train your mind of how to think of solutions when you think of a problem, right? So that is what it is now. Cool. So now we'll move on to objects, JavaScript objects, right? So referring back to the example that we had, the library example, library management system, right? So let's say the library had let's say 500 books, right? So we could go ahead and do book one name equal to, let's say, B1, right? And then variable book two name could be B2, right? And so on and so forth, right? So like you could have 500 variables. Now again, it does not, okay, it does not make sense, right? So we have understood that we should ideally put it in an array, right? So we just came across this situation. Now we have already solved that problem. Now why do we need JavaScript objects, right? Why we already have an array. If you want to put something together, we'll put it in an array, right? That's it. Now think of a scenario wherein you also want to, so basically when we talked about, right, so book one name, right? So now we also talked about like people who have issued, right? So what I can do is that book one issuers, and I'll give it an array, and there will be like a few people's name in it who have issued these books, right? And then you could also have you can also, so so some of the books have, basically they have different versions, right? So there, it could be a version one of the book, version two of the book. So then you can also have book one version, right? So it could be one, two, three, four, whatever, right? So on and so forth. It could be anything, right? Now also then you could also have, so basically if somebody loses a book, so you would also want to keep a track of all the book price, right? So you would also want to keep a track of book price. So that would also be, let's say it is 500 bucks, and so on and so forth, right? So but all of this information, if you look at it, right, so it is actually a book itself. It's information about a book. So why don't we actually bundle it together? Why don't we go ahead and bundle this information together and say that this bundle is for a book one, right? And that is exactly what we'll do, right? So that is exactly what a JavaScript object is, right? So one more example, just to make it even more clearer for everybody to understand. Just imagine an employee in a company, right? So whenever somebody is or let's consider a student in a college who has gone for a new enrollment, right? So what all information you would want to keep with that person, right? So you would not want his first name, then you would want his last name, and then his father's name, and then his age, and then what else? uh, you would want his high school marks, high school grade, or whatever. And you would also you can keep, obviously, I forgot mother's name, and then probably which area of specialization that he's taking up. So area of specialization, and then you're probably, you can talk about, there are multiple things, right? There are so many things that you can but all of this information is actually has to be bundled for a particular student, right? It has to be bundled for that particular student, right? So how do we go ahead and bundle the information? And that is where objects come in, right? So basically an object is an encapsulation of, so that is it's an encapsulation. It's just bundling of information together to form information. It's just bundling of variables, right? The variable that we are declared, it's just bundling them together so that we can use it as a whole, right? So if somebody comes up to me and he says that, okay, show me information about Anirudh, right? So Anirudh is a student, and somebody wants to see the information. What I can do is I can just give him this particular object, right? And he can see all the information that he needs, right? Or if he says me that if he says that I need to see his age, right? So what I can do is that I can just go and see in this particular object, I'll just refer to this age, and whatever value is saved against this age, I'll tell him that, right? So that is exactly how an object works. It's just a bundling of information together, encapsulating data together, and that is what. So basically, if to declare an object, right, what we can do is that we just name it variable or a let, right? We have talked about what let and variables are. We'll be going into the depth of it later on, but let person equal to, and that's how a JavaScript object is created, like curly braces, the ones that we use for the body center, right? Putting some body inside it. It's exactly the same curly braces that we use for for actually defining an object. So if I want to define an object, I'll just put this curly brace, and we keep the properties. So just the simplest way of defining an object is var obj equal to, this is an object. This is an object. It's not. You can't say that's not an object. Some memory was allocated to this particular. Although what you can say is that it's an empty object. So it is of no use, right? It's just an empty object, right? So what I can do is that I can add some property to it. So I'll say obj dot age equal to 24, right? So this is what I'll do. And then when I try to print this object, I will see this particular object to have this value of 24 against a key of. So basically your object, these are called your keys and these are called your values. Keys and values. Always remember this. This is just a key value pair. An object is nothing but a key value pair, right? So nothing else, right? So if I go and try to print this value, it gives me an object. Since I started with an empty object, but I can give it any value, and I've given it a value of age of 24, right? I can give it any value. I can say obj dot first name equal to, let's say, Anirudh, and then okay, my bad, and obj dot last name could be, let's say, Agarwal. I'll just put it A, and then obj dot area of specialization, I'll put it as JavaScript. And then when I try to print it, that's it. It just created an object. It just created and put all the values in it, right? So now if I want to access just the age, right? So let's say I created and I just want to access the age of it, I'll say obj.age, right? So it's a dot operator. It's also called a reference operator. So it basically refers to the object, and whatever value, whatever key is given, it will just take that key and it will put it here. Now, another thing that I could have done, since if I know these values at when I'm creating that object, right? What I can do is I can simply put these values here, right? So I can do age as 24. That's it. I can say first name as so that's the syntax for it, right? So while defining an object, what you can do is that in curly braces you can give the key followed by this colon and then any value along with it, right? Key colon any value, right? And when we do object dot first name, and if you try to assign it some other value, right? So let's say if I give it Anirudh, I give it ANIR. So it will modify that the value will get changed, right? So that now we'll see. We'll just copy this guy also so that we're able to see before and after modifications. My bad. So the first when we declared the object, the age was 24 and the first name was okay. So yeah, that's okay. I committed this thing, a typo, and but it showed us, right? So if so age was replaced. So if I change it to like 48, so and we'll run it. I'll try to demonstrate a very important concept with this. Right? So we have defined an object of in which the age I put a 24, and instead I made a typo and I said first name. So I was supposed to write R here. I did not write R here. So basically my object was this. And now when it comes to this guy, right? So when it comes to this guy, it sees that age already exists. So basically what it will do, it will override the value which was already present. But when it sees that first name is there, but it's not already there in my object, so basically it created another key inside of it, and it assigned that value. That's it. That's how an object works. Is as simple as that. You can also delete an object, an element in like it's basically, these are called entries in your object. These are called, so this is an entry. Uh, and if I want to iterate over all the entries in your object, right? So basically, JavaScript gives us something called as object dot keys, and in this you can pass in your object. And what this guy will do is, and I'll make it correct. So what this guy returned, right? So let's console this. So it what did it return? It returned me an array. Remember array? It returned me an array of age, age, and first name and first name. So basically, what it did is that it returned me all the keys of an object. That's it. That's what it does, right? So what if I want to iterate over each of these arrays? So what I'll do is that I'll say variable keys equal to object dot keys, object dot keys of obj, right? And then what I can do is I'll put a for loop, and I'll say variable I equal to 0, I is less than keys dot length, and I'll do I plus plus, right? Just try to make it more clean. And then what I can do is that I can log this console.log key is the key is this keys at ith index, and the value for it would be okay. So now if you think about it, right? So if I want to get a value, so so just to get a value, what had we done earlier is we had done object dot age, right? And it gave me the value. So exactly the same thing we'll do. Another syntax for accessing these elements, these entries, is actually using the using this particular square brackets, and in this you can write an age. So this is exactly similar to writing obj dot age. So these two syntaxes are equivalent, right? So what I'll do is I'll use this syntax, and I'll say obj, and I'll pass this key, the keys at. So let's try to simplify it a little. So variable key for index is equal to keys at I, right? So basically this is the value of that key. This is the index which is actually iterating. So it will go from 0 and 1. So basically if I add some other let me also add last name, and I'll add a, and then I'll say some, and I'll say thing, and someone, and I'll say thing one, right? Just simply put, right? So now what is happening is that this guy will give me all the keys, age, first name, last name. So all of these will be stored here, as we saw here, right? Now we will iterate. So we'll put a for loop in which we will go from I, from 0 till the 1 2 3 4 5 5, right? So it will go till less than 5, which is I will go till 4, and then every this is your post expression, so it will increment every time. So what I'll do is I try to take out the key for that index, right? So when it is at 0, so that 0 will give me age. So this value will hold, this key for index will hold the value of age when I is 0, right? So my key, so my index for my key, I want to print my key as key for index, and I will pass key for index, right? So object, as I told you, right? So if I want to access something as object of age, so that is what I'm saying. So right now this guy will hold the value of age, so that is why I have passed object of age, right? So this is simple, and we'll print and we'll run. We'll see what happens if we encounter a problem. No, we did not encounter any problem. It is very simple. Key is age, value is 24. Key is first name, value is Anirudh. Last name A, something, someone, thing one, right? So that is exactly how I would go about iterating an array. There are multiple, there are so many instances of how you can uh, of so many operations that you can perform in an array, get, delete, modify, blah blah. So all of that, right? So there are so many things that you can do. Similarly, you can actually in array you have splice, you have concat. You can take out a piece of it. You can add another array. You can add five, six multiple arrays together. There are so many functions that are already provided by JavaScript for us to understand and for us to use, right? So I would really encourage you to go to the playground and just play around, right? So it is very simple. If I create an array, let's say I create a variable ARR and I give it an array, right? So you can actually go ahead and you can use all of these functions, right? So these are all the functions that you can use. These are all the functions that you can use, right? So you can do slice, splice, all of these, right? So just go ahead and read about them. They're so interesting. If you would want us to cover all of these topics, we would be happy to, but do mention it in the discussions forum, in the doubts forum. We would love to hear what you want to learn from us. So, and if you have any issues, please do mention those in the doubts forum, right? So today we have learned about arrays, we've learned about objects, and the most important part, we've learned that what is the need of these, right? We could have easily lived without arrays, or we could have lived without objects, right? But what is the need? Why does it have to be bundled together, or why do we need a contiguous memory for that purpose, right? So that is the reason why we have arrays and objects, right? So now, very very simple thing, very one more one sim before we end this session today. We will also try to touch upon what is a string. So there is something known as a string, right? uh, we have been using it right from the first class, but it never crosses our mind, right? So let me just try to give a brief intro, and then probably we could talk about it in the next session, right? um, so so let's say I say variable, and I name it s, right? And when I do Anirudh, right, when I did this, right? So what is this? What's this guy? Have you ever imagined what is this guy? So if I do console.log and I do s.type, I think that works. Okay, that's not type of. Yes. What did it say? Type of s is strange, and then let's say I give it something. So let's say I give it s equal to 10. Then when I try to run it, it gives number. Okay, strange. And then when I say s equal to, let's say, a, right? And then we'll see it gives another string. Okay. So can I, if you can imagine, anything that is put inside your what do we say, these apostrophe, or anything that we put inside in your single quote is actually considered to be a string in JavaScript. That is how JavaScript is. That this anything that is put inside your single quotes is actually considered to be a type of string. So in some of the programming languages like C, C++, which are quite old, there's no concept of string, right? Just the concept of string is not inbuilt. People have built libraries over it to make it supported, but natively or in the language they are not supported. But JavaScript, some modern programming languages like JavaScript, Java, right? Java also has first class support for strings, right? So basically, this all of these are strings. And now, one very good this thing is about string is actually, it's basically an array, right? A string is basically an array of characters, right? This is one character. So A so basically so Anirudh has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? So 7. So basically it's an array of 7 characters. That is it. That's what a string is. So you can also individually get like in an array, right? We can just use that operator, and we can get the value of that particular operator. That does not that let's see what if we try to do that. So if I want to get the position of s at 0th, then we'll see what happens, right? It works, right? So it works, and it will give me the value of. So why is it so? Because it's just an underlying implementation. The underlying implementation of a string is actually a character array. So whenever you try to access any of the elements, so basically you can also do this, right? So s dot length, and it will just print you the length of an array, and you can actually iterate through it like we did with the for loop for an array. But one thing about strings is that you can actually not modify it. So if you can't modify, and you cannot name it as Anirudh, you will make it any other thing, right? Like let's say n, right? And you want to give it that is not how it will. I think it should not be. Right. See, it did not. So it's the property of a string is that it is immutable in nature. You cannot mutate it. You cannot mutate the characters of a string. What you can do is that. So basically, ideally, if it had been an array, right? If it had been an array, what would have happened is that the value at 0th position would have changed, right? But since it's a string, it's not exactly an array. The underlying implementation of string is an array, but it's not exactly an array, right? So that is what it is. So you cannot modify it, but what you can do is that I can assign it a different variable. So if let's say I want to do this, what I'll do is, just to give you a taste of it, what I'll do is either you will do ni and Nirud, right? My name is too complex, but still it's okay. Okay, so basically, what I've done is that I've assigned it a new string altogether. But one more way to do it is, since we're talking about, and just to give you an example of how slice works, what we'll do is that we will do n, and we'll do plus operator plus, and what we'll do is that we'll do s dot substring, and we'll pass it index of 1, and we'll print the exact same result. Should. Yes, it did, right? So it did print the exact same result. If you don't believe me, then I'll put ni, right? And because I am also not sure, right? So that's what it is. So basically, what I'm doing is that I'm creating a variable of I am so s is a string, and in it a string has a function called substring, right? It's a function, and what it does is that it will take a parameter. In this parameter, what this argument, whenever I pass any number, right? I could pass any number from 0 till 6, and it will ignore whatever was before that index, and it will take to the end, right? So if I want it also takes in another parameter, and if you want to give it so basically you can see the documentation, right? It says 0 based index number, indicating the end of a string. The substring includes the character up to, but not including the character indicated by the end. If end is omitted, the characters from the start through the end of the original statement is returned, and that is exactly what we did. I did not give it an end, right? I did not give this value. I just gave a start value. And if end is omitted, the characters from the start. So the characters starting from first index till the end of the string are there. Only this first character, the if the end is omitted, the characters from the start to the end of the original string is returned. So from starting from the start, 1st position, to the last position, it will return this. So if I had given it a value of, let's say, 5, and it would have given me only till 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it gives only D and H, right? And let's say I want to give it a value of RU, right? I want to give it just a value of RU. What I would do is that I'll take it 0, 1, 2, 3. So I'll give it an index of 3, and and the end is not, and and it says that 0th base index, the substring includes the character up to, but not including. The substring includes a character up to, right? So if I want to get it I will give it, this is not included. So what I'll do is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'll give it 6 value. So this third will be included, third, fourth, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I have to give 5, right? Yes, my bad. So it will give me third and fourth, and 5 will not be included, right? So that is what it is. So it gave me NI, and it included third character and fourth character. 5 was not included, so it gave you NIRU. So this is just to give you a taste of all the methods that are there. And so basically, if you want to convert your string to all uppercase, right? So if let's say I want to say console.log of, and I want to make all of them so to uppercase, there's a function which is given directly by JavaScript, and I can do this. So it will basically convert all my this thing to Anirudh. All of them become capital case, right? So there are a lot of functions. There's one something called as to lowercase. So all of these are there. There are a lot of functions that you can go around and play around with. If you do a simple Google search and you search for JavaScript string, right? JavaScript string, and then this W3 schools, it'll give you all the methods that there are, right? It index of, last index of, all of these, right? So there are a lot of, there's so many. We'll be touching upon some of them while solving the question, but I would really suggest if you guys go ahead and go through all of these, right? There are a lot of functions from object, there are a lot of arrays, some functions which work on arrays, a lot of them which work on strings. So I would really suggest you to go ahead and as and when you start to understand, as and when you start to learn more and more, right? This is something which will help you out, and it will create that interest for you. So that is what it is, and I hope you all have a wonderful weekend ahead. I'll see you guys, everybody, on Monday. Thank you. Signing off, this is Amrut Agarwal. If you have any doubts in whatever we have been covering, if you have any suggestions, please do feel free to use the doubts forum, and we are looking at it. Thank you so much. Thanks for joining in today.